This has been a growing phenomenon in Israel. The number of IDF reserve soldiers threatening to refuse to report for duty in protest of the government's judicial overhaul plan. Now, the response by the Prime Minister is something we want to bring into focus. Here's Netanyahu.
Whatever the differences between us, we are always united against those who seek our souls. This was the case in all of Israel's wars, regardless of the differences between us. The refusal threatens this existential foundation, therefore it must not have a place in our ranks. Israeli society has always condemned the refusals and has always sanctified the joint service in the security forces. We have never given refusals a foothold, under any circumstances and anywhere, neither in the regular army nor in the reserve army.
As I briefly introduced him before the break here, we are joined in the studio by IDF Reserve Captain Guy Poran, a former Air Force pilot and a co-leader of the Air Force pilots' protests. So very relevant to have you in the studio right now. Well, first of all, I want to get your reaction to the Prime Minister's comments, to the angle that he's taking on this.
Okay, if I may just relate to in a few words to the former speaker presented as if facts that previous governments have done even worse changes and reforms. This is of course not true, because a policy change of left, of right, has happened before, and the Oslo Agreement, etc., but no previous government have dared to change the rules of the game, changed Israel balance between the judicial part and the Knesset. This is the only ones that do it. The second fact, which is not true, is that the majority of the people support it. Now, all the polls show that even within the Likud, even within the coalition parties, more than half reject the way that this reform is being forced. The fact that there is a need or a possibility to do reform, true. In every aspect of Israel's life, in the military, in education, in judicial, we're not objecting to reforms. But the way that this is done is not a reform. This is a revolution. Now, regarding your question about the Prime Minister, the movement
that you're leading, yes.
Yeah, he's used the word refusal, though that's the way that you translated it. I want to make it very, very clear. No pilot has refused any order. The 37 pilots out of the 40 reservists of this very front-end, top-of-the-line squadrons have done a very simple thing. They do reserve duty, miluim,
a lot of it,
every week for a day for many years. They decided to withhold for one day this week, tomorrow, to discuss among themselves what would be the situation if this revolution happens, and what would be with them and the squadrons. This is not only their right, it's their duty to raise a red flag. Because what do you expect? You expect that after the legislation is done, and if they cannot participate anymore in the Air Force, are they supposed to wait and then afterwards say, sorry, we cannot take part? No. This is the moment for them to raise a red flag against. They did not refuse. Some of them might have acted in yesterday's attack in Syria.
Yeah, I mean, this is to highlight again, as you mentioned, this is the tip of the spear, these guys. And yes, some reports indicating they were, again, allegedly in the air, operating against Syria last night. I don't know if you can comment on that at all, but that's an important point to highlight here. But look, I want to bring in the critics for a minute here, who, some of them coming from the government here, saying that this harms the nation's security, quote unquote. And I think you may have answered this already, but is it a success if, like, the army lays down its arms, if there's some sort of mass demonstration like that?
Yeah, first of all, we're not there. It's not even close. What it is that the risk to the security is much more by this kind of aggressive, one-sided legislation, which would cause a lot of people who think that this is not going to be a democracy anymore. This legislation is going to cause them to withhold their reserve, and this will hurt the security of Israel. Right now, those reservists that raise the red flag are not risking the security. They are participating in the reserve. They are doing all the duties. All they're doing is they are demonstrating, and they are telling the government, hold it. If you go ahead with this aggressive legislation, which in our opinion will turn Israel into a non-democratic state, we're going to have a problem to participate in the army. So this is the moment to raise this red flag, and I admire those pilots for having done so.
It's risky. Look, I want to bring another step here. Some of the other, the criticism on this, that, there should be concern, I think, for how it's perceived by the enemy. I mean, Hezbollah, for example, they're not missing this moment. They're jumping all over it. Seeing it as a moment of weakness, even, the way they're defining it. Is there concern that such a display could be perceived as weakness, could invite attacks, endanger the kids on the front lines?
Again, I think that the Hezbollah and the rest of Israel's enemies are looking at this legislation that is, and what it is causing to the country, the split, the lack of confidence in the government. This is what they're happy about. I don't think that they think for one moment that the Israeli army and air force is going to be less effective if they try to do anything. This is not the question. And by the way, Israel's defense force and the air force is not losing its capacity overnight. It's something that will not happen. What the Hezbollah and the rest of our enemies are looking at, and they said that, is the rupture in the Israeli society. This is caused by the government, not by the reservists.
Guy Poran, I know this is a movement that will continue. I know you're set to stand your ground on this, along with the other guys who are alongside you in this. So first of all, thank you for your service. Good luck out there in the streets, obviously.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.